Hi, everyone. Bob Dietrich here with the ADHD Toolbox, your resource for helping your child overcome learning and behavioral challenges and self-regulate. I have a very special guest today, Avi Loren-Cohen. Avi is a strategic business management consultant. He provides clients with career coaching. He also does ADD coaching for adults and professionals. And today we've got a big conversation about how to turn your ADHD into a superpower. We're going to find out what that's all about. Avi, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, let's jump right in. On your website, you talk about ADHD being a superpower, and so many people look at it as a disorder. So right away, it's a disease that needs to be cured, as opposed to this amazing potential that just needs to be molded into a superpower. It's actually something that nobody else has, and they have a potential here to be an Einstein and an Edison. And so can we start just by talking about how is ADHD a superpower, and how can people start to embrace that as that potential?
Sure. This is such a really important point that you bring up. The fact that the acronym and the whole word has disorder in it is, I mean, it's not like everybody says, hey, I got a disorder, let's embrace it. You know, it's right away stipulating there's a negative, and that creates a stigmatism. And we all know that we don't want to create a stigmatism, especially with the young mind. So, you know, I would love if they were to change it in the DSM-3 or 4 to make it like ADHD superpower, ADS, you know, something like, it'd be fantastic, but that's not the reality. So yeah, we look at it and we recognize that there are some weaknesses to it, you know, the Achilles heel to it, but there's also some serious strengths to it. And to your point, I mean, you know, as part of the population that would have ADD, you can do things, a person can do things that most other people will find a huge challenge. Mm-hmm. Things like, for example, and this, you know, it's generalization, doesn't apply to everyone and at every stage of one's life, but in the generalization is you've got a lot of creativity. You can have superpowers in the ability to just be tenacious and keep on going at it, which that is super valuable to be able to just, you know, not give up, but just keep going, even though you're being knocked down or walls are coming in your way. Things such as hyperfocus, it's a common expression that's used in the ADD world, where the person could literally just keep cranking at it for hours. A lot of parents like to say, my kid can play video games for days on end, nonstop. They have incredible focus. Not exactly the same thing. By the way, that's not the example of hyperfocus we're talking about, right? I mean, anything that's exciting and happy and fun, well, yeah, we could probably focus a long time, even as non-ADD people that are adults. So, but I mean, you know, in terms of someone being able to, let's say, in their workspace or even in a class that they're enjoying, which is the key factor there, they can actually stay hyper-focused on it and crank out a paper, a document, or something really well. Then there are other things. They tend to be quite sociable. The brains work generally quite quickly. Again, this is a spectrum we're talking about, so I'm giving you a generalization that's more in the middle. Mm-hmm. So, you know, things such as, you know, having a great debate. So things like being a lawyer, being a salesperson, being in advertising, being an entrepreneur, that those quick thinking capabilities and quick answers to that is amazing. So, I mean, this day and age, we're talking entrepreneurships and startups and all this type of stuff. So people with ADD and ASD, this is perfect timing for them.
Got it. And, you know, a good place for us to start today is really talking about the denial some people are in, or the unwillingness to embrace the ADHD and really own it, and so they can actually, you know, manage the weaknesses and nurture the strengths. So can you talk a little bit about what your experience is as a coach of people, you know, even knowing they have it, even being the resistance to being assessed, and then embracing it, and why that's important?
So I'll talk about young adults mostly, but this is not exclusive. I'm just focusing examples and stories on that. But I've had a situation where a client came to me from California. They're in their, I don't know, mid-20s, early 20s, didn't finish university, and really is kind of getting by in life, unfortunately. hasn't found his place. And he came to me asking for help with his career and a business project. And what's interesting is that I'm trying to listen to him, but couldn't get a word in the conversation. And when a word was spoken, it was countered immediately with, I know. And I'm listening to this and I'm saying, oh, the red flags are up here. This guy's got to be ADD. And I'm listening. Finally, he stops for a pause. I don't know if he's taking a drink. And I said to him, have you been tested for ADD? I'm not being critical. I'm just curious because you have a lot of energy, right? You have a lot of energy. And, and he says, oh, I know I'm ADD. As a matter of fact, I'm ADHD. I said, oh, check. So have you done anything about this? Have you seen a therapist? Have you been tested? He says, yeah, I was tested. No, I haven't seen a therapist and I don't plan to. I said, oh, okay. Not that it's my business, but why? He says, well, I know I have it and I know all about it and I'm doing just fine. And the reality is he's not doing just fine, at least not by my standards. His life may be good, but he's just getting by financially. He's been in and out of relationships constantly. This one's lasted about 2 years, which he thinks it's going to break up. But the lack of recognition of reality of what you're dealing with in his mind, his perception is his reality. As far as he can see it, he's happy. So good for him. He's happy. Fantastic. But there are other cases where I'll deal with people, especially, more adults, upper 30s and so forth. And you'll speak to them and say, listen, you sound like you might be ADHD. And they'll go, really, what's that? Or I've heard of that. I don't know much. Does that mean a hyper? Like very little knowledge, right? So they're the type of people that are not, holding back or uncomfortable with it. They're like, can I learn about this? What's going on? And that's the difference between someone who's a little more mature and not, right? And that emotional intelligence that's still, able to work, which is a problem for ADD people, actually. And in these cases, and there's at least 3 that I can think of right away, the first thing was, holy beep, that explains so much. Oh my God. Now I understand now I know why. Oh my God, I have this self-image that I was so stupid and that I was so lazy, and the list goes on, right? Mm-hmm. And they realize, I've been depressed and angry and felt so, low about myself and blah, blah, blah for years. That's not my fault. It's not something I could have controlled it. I could have done something with it. Right. And immediately say, well, listen, I'm not a therapist. Why don't you go to a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and check it out? Get tested. And sure enough, they'll come back and they go, Eureka, this is fantastic. It's explained my whole life for me. And now it's like a new life has opened. I can now figure out, how do I plot my journey for the next stage of my life? So now they can go for therapy. Now they can get the chemistry that they need to moderate or modulate their chemistry. And they can have the coaching along the way to develop those techniques, to plot that career that they want, to get back into school and figure out how to focus and do what they got to do where they couldn't before.
Wow. So knowing the ADHD, knowing that you have it, and then and embracing it gives you the power to let that superpower emerge.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, for sure.
Yeah, especially in this case. And as we know, the studies show that the mortality rates on people with unmanaged ADHD are quite high, higher than diabetes, higher than heart disease. They have shorter lifespans. They get themselves into reckless situations. Can you talk a little bit about that, the unmanaged consequences and what happens to people when it's unmanaged as they move into adulthood?
Sure, and I'm not trying to pick on words, but you use unmanaged. I think it could also be unrecognized, as in the case of individuals that I've spoken with as well.
Okay.
So let's just say non-treated, maybe.
Okay, perfect.
And yeah, there's a stimulation that they're looking for that obviously generates a chemical reaction, which probably is the dopamine that's getting them very excited. Look at Richard Branson, who's also ADD, and he's very proud of it, and he has no issues with it, and he attributes that to a lot of his success and his creativity. Mm-hmm. And if you look at his early career days, you'll look at him jumping off of buildings, or whatever his planes with parachutes, and he does all these things. Yes, it was PR stunts. Yes, he said he would probably never do that again. But the idea to actually say, hey, that's a viable option that I might take, wouldn't come from a non-ADD person in general. It's that risk, that excitement, that attention he's going to garner from it. That's part of the ADD persona. Now, he's lucky, not that he was fed with a silver spoon, but he's lucky. He's been very successful. He's made very good decisions, which really is a lot about life decisions and experiences. And he's done very well in that. But there are other people that, to your point, have not. The option, hey, do you want to try drugs? Okay, I'll try it. And the next thing leads to the next thing. Whatever, reaction they're getting, whatever excitement they're getting. I mean, I had a client, she's married, 3 kids, hugely successful, has a great career, husband's a lawyer as well, living high. And she can't get out of her mind this old boyfriend. And this old boyfriend keeps on coming into her life, and she just can't get over it. And she knows it's wrong, and she knows what the options are, but she's like caught in a loop. So what's the issue? When you look down to it, yes, there's a slight dissatisfaction with the marriage, yes. But what is the satisfaction rooted in? There's no zing. There's no wow. When you think about courting, that's the most exciting part of a relationship. The idea, of being wooed by a man, or the man, trying to woo the woman. There is a lot of excitement, and she's missing that excitement. That's what it comes down to. And that's what's connected to that potential, cheating behind her husband. It's back to the ADD.
Got it. All right, and they'll get themselves in different situations. They're more apt to try drugs that most people wouldn't. They're more apt to get themselves into sexual situations, maybe not use protection like most normal people might, and they just take adverse risks, and that's why those mortality numbers, those rates are a little higher, and that's why the lifespans can be shorter because of those types of situations.
Well, as well as with addictions,
right?
As well as with driving behavior. Especially with males. I mean, the brain doesn't fully develop till you're about 25. We all know the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for, the proper decision-making, the emotional side, and emotional intelligence. That's not fully developed either. So imagine you're dealing with a person, especially males who develop slower, right? At a younger age, going into a driver's ed, situation where they're, going for insurance. I mean, if the insurance companies were smart, they'd come up with a blood test to see if they're ADD, and if they are, double the fee for their insurance. Right. It's that significant. They're going to do really stupid things more so than those who aren't.
Got it. All right. So, so knowing your superpower is super important. I'm going to edit this part out. So knowing your superpower is super important. And knowing that you have ADHD important, embracing it is important. Let's talk about the strengths. And you kind of started on this a little earlier. Let's go over this a little bit more. How do you know what strengths you have and what that superpower might be? And then how do you leverage that, or how do you nurture and kind of just coax that out of yourself or out of your child or whoever you're with?
Okay, well, I mean, I'll talk from a coach's perspective. I'm not going to talk from the individual's perspective because I'm usually talking to them or with them, right? But it's really actually 2 things. A, what are the weaknesses and the strengths? Kind of like your personal SWOT analysis. But we're talking about soft skills, personal skills, communication skills, and the isms that ADD, offers, shall we say. So, for example, incessant talking, run-on sentences, inability to focus, time management or lack of time management skills, prioritization, impulsivity, as we know. But I'm talking about more so in a group dynamic, i.e., school, i.e., work, etc. If a person doesn't recognize that they tend to interrupt a lot, and it's perfectly fine, well, you can help them, right? So as much as their strengths may play phenomenally for them, at the end of the day, if someone says, I just can't work, or I can't be in a team, or I can't be around this guy, he doesn't shut up for a second, as much as your strengths can be off the charts, there's certain things that they have to work on and recognize as well. So most of those things have to do with socializing and then managing their time and their mind a bit. So there are techniques and tools and systems that we can put into play for that to offset that. Mindfulness, cognitive behavior therapy is a great tool, especially with people who are frustrated, get easily agitated by other people, which is very common for ADD people. They have a very strong lack of tolerance, a thin threshold for people who are too slow, i.e. not fast, i.e. not smart. So if you can't keep up with them, lack of patience. I have a client in Europe who's quite smart, didn't finish school, but super smart in technology. And I remember once I set him up with somebody, and the guy didn't talk as fast, didn't act as fast. He blew him off the phone. I was so embarrassed. I just could not believe it. When I spoke to him after, I said, what happened? He says, the guy's too slow. He's not smart. I said, what do you mean he's not smart? You didn't give him a chance. I have no patience for that. That is not a good social skill. You cannot be managing teams if you're going to be like that, right? That's crazy. On the other hand, if you take a look at that, that could be a very big Achilles heel, as I just described. But if we look into that individual as an example, that behavior of very quick judgment, he actually is very good at judging person's character really fast, absolutely incredibly fast. And he'll say right away, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, how do you know? I just know. How does he just know? Because internally he's got enough data in there to figure out those data points make sense. And he doesn't, slow down to recognize what they are, but he just knows. So we use that as a strength. That's his strength. It may not be ADD, but he gets it quickly. The other ADD things really has to do with some people who are, let's say you're an introvert and you're shy and you're ADD for some odd reason. That all connects into an ADD person. And, for whatever reason it is, you're that. What type of job do you take? Research is fantastic because research you can hyper-focus and continually go on. Details are really problematic for ADD people. I mean, the worst thing you could do is give an ADD person detail work like an assistant, that's dealing with minutia details. They're more bigger picture, more creative. Again, generalization. If that's your weakness, don't go for an assistant's position where you're going to have to monitor details because you're going to, have more failures than successes. Right. Unless you're a person who's really willing to really work on that and take criticism, it could be, a rough ride. On the other hand, if you're a person where, creativity, dynamics, constant, thinking stuff, an ad agency, for example, might be a great place for a person to go because they're welcoming of constant new ideas. And there is no bad idea. There's any idea we'll take from that, we'll create something. So anything can be a diamond in the rough. So if you're like that, that's great. I always tell people who are very social, who have that quick mind, quick thought, do you ever think of sales? Now, this not necessarily is for the individual who's done, a very formal education. I'm talking about people that have not been very successful in the formal academic world. Mm-hmm. And they'll typically say, school wasn't really for me. I mean, I just didn't really have the patience and I didn't really see the point. And I got a taste of the business world and I really liked that. It was fun. It was exciting. I got to earn money. I got to socialize. That's kind of like the profile. You kind of tell that sales can be a really good avenue for such a person. Or, customer service where they're problem solving and they have to think quickly. So for me, I've found such tremendous response with, the startup world to bring that up again, especially Silicon Valley, where you have tons of tech startups where there's, a startup, you're doing multiple things, you're wearing multiple hats and they don't have a lot of money. So they can't hire, an individual for each task. So you got to multitask. It's a perfect formula for an ADD person, by the way, very entrepreneurial mindset. And they do very well in that area. So, I'll tell a client that's, CEO of a new startup, I'll say, listen, go find yourself some ADD people. Why? Because those are the people that are like hunters. They're going to go into that business. You're going to give them all these tasks like a dog with a bone, and they're going to go after those tasks. They're going to go after that bone. They're going to deal with it and get it right away, and they'll find ways right around it. And that's where that tenacity comes into, and those quick minds. Mm-hmm. They get over it. Just give them the challenge. They love those challenges. I know it sounds quite simple, but it actually has been happening, every single time we put this into play, it works.
Got it. So knowing the strengths is important. That's kind of how you leverage the strengths, is just knowing what they are and making sure that you're putting them into those stronger positions. And then knowing the weaknesses is super important too, because then you can know where to keep them out of, right? To keep them away from, management and details and things like that, and put them into creative situations. Let's talk a little bit about compensation. What are some examples of how they would compensate for their weaknesses?
Right. Well, just as I mentioned earlier, briefly, so a person let's say a person doesn't realize they're ADD, mm-hmm. or let's say they realize, but they're not doing therapy, they're not with it, but they know they have these certain weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't know they're ADD, but they know there's a weakness. So a person right. doesn't pay attention very well. That person should not be doing functions where, attention to detail is required. So the compensation there is, you do one of two things. You overcompensate, you find a way to really hyper-focus, be mindful, create checklists, for example, of what to do beforehand, so you make sure you don't go off point. You take really good notes. You make very much a confirmation when you're speaking to somebody. You ask them, so is this what you mean? Just to clarify, to make sure, because they often can misinterpret conversations because their head and mind are moving so fast in advance. They're not absorbing what's being said. So confirm what's being asked of you. They do different steps to compensate. It can help them get over it. And just like a muscle, they can eventually create a system where this is working, even though it's a detailed thing, they can overcome it. Because what happens is, if they're really motivated, they really like it. Just like, for example, a guy who hated statistics. And I said to him, learn statistics in a way that relates to what you do in business. How do you do that? Well, explain to your tutor, this is how you want to learn. And lo and behold, the guy did phenomenally well, because he learned it in a way that it was relatable and it was exciting to him. And it wasn't difficult to remember those formulas, because each piece of the formula related to something that he could tangibly understand, visually see, and understand the outcome. So even though it could be very hard, if you sort of gamify it, or you make it relatable, and therefore generate pleasure from it, the person could overcome that, not a problem. If it's not, and it's something a person doesn't like, I hate mathematics. I had a person that hated mathematics. The teacher flunked everybody in his grade, whole story there, and used to love it prior to that. The wrong teacher, the wrong conduit to teach this kid. Eventually, he had to go through mathematics for university, got a great tutor. The tutor, though he didn't like mathematics and had a negative disposition, that tutor was so patient, was so kind, was so understanding, didn't chastise, wasn't sarcastic, was very welcoming, and even a question that was totally wrong was accepted as, that's a good idea. Why did you think that? Where's your head coming from? Where's your mind? Let me explain to you why that isn't correct. Not that you're wrong, but why it's done another way. Dealing with that person the right way can also bring the best out of that person. And unfortunately, that isn't commonly seen. So that's the compensation for it. The other type of compensation is you can call, avoiding it or going around it, and controlling it in a different way. So, for example, if you're a highly active, rambunctious person, the last thing you want to do is sit in an office. You'll go out of your mind and drive people crazy, especially if you're not on meds and you haven't had any coaching or any therapy to help you deal with, keeping your control. Such as one thing, if you really had to, they have these little peddlers that you see for school children, that you peddle on your desk. You can get one of those for your office. Most offices will allow you to use one of those even if you're at your desk. So you're feeling a little hyper, instead of tapping all the time and irritating your neighbors in the office, pedal the bike, or just stand up, or, take periodic walks, every 45 minutes, go to the, go outside, go take a walk, get a drink of water. That activity releases some of that energy, go back to the desk and refocus. But, again, don't go for things that are inside that space or that are too mundane. If you're a highly creative person, your mind is always creative, go to that market that appreciates that. And that's the key thing. Who recognizes your weaknesses, which are also your strengths often, in this case, go for places that want that. I mean, it's only natural. So I say go for advertising, marketing, PR, communication, sales, entrepreneurship, technology, you name it. Those places, they want that. So that's the other side.
Yeah. That's great. This is really, really good information. So many aha moments coming up in my head. Let's shift the conversation a little bit toward systems now. And when you work with people, you're an ADHD coach as well as a business coach. You talk with your patients or your clients, not your patients, a lot about systems and how systems work. Can you talk about some of the systems, what a system looks like, what are some of the systems you use, and why systems are important for people with ADHD?
Sure. A three-part question. Okay. So first of all, the first thing I'm doing is evaluating the person. Can they do a system? Are they doing a system? A lot of times individuals with ADD might be diagnosed or seen as a person who's OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior. And yes, there are some people that actually have that as an actual issue, but some people don't. Some people actually have this as a coping mechanism. So take, for example, a lot of the harmful, impactful memories a person has is when they're younger. Single digits especially. So if the mom would tell the kid, you constantly forget your key to school, a key to the house, and every time you come back from school, I have to come from my work, or someone has to, open the door for you. I mean, latch kid scenario, right? And so, what do the parents do? They, at least when I was a kid, they put the key on a chain, or a cord, and they put it over the neck, and hopefully the kid won't forget that it's under their shirt. I mean, that's a very cute system that you can put into place. So parents will often think of that as a very good, system in place for that scenario. Take, further into adulthood, losing your keys. A very common thing for AD people, losing their keys, misplacing their wallets, where did their school books go? I mean, the list goes on. Memory of certain things, placement of certain things. So, I always like to use the example of Leonard and Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. What do they do when they come into their apartment? The first thing they do is they open the door, they take a look to their right, and they drop their keys in the bowl on the table right away. Great system, because if you do that every single day, all the time, you know exactly where your keys are going to be.
Right.
Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that with your wallet, because who knows coming in and out. So maybe, if your wallet, you keep it in your pants until you change your pants for washing, or you put it on the IKEA table, whatever, but you have a system. And basically the system idea is that the risk and reward of making an error. So if you don't want to make an error, how do I not make an error, is by create a system so that I'm continuously doing the same thing over and over. So in a work environment, let's say your person has to travel often, and you're constantly forgetting certain things when you pack. Well, very simple, make a checklist. Checklists are probably one of the best things. Or you're forgetting to do things. You can, get a day book or an agenda on your phone and put it in, but remembering to look at it, that's a whole new other level of remembering things, right? So I tell people, go to the dollar stores, buy those imitation 3M sticky pads, and, I don't know, use red for like urgent, make sure you don't forget that one, and yellow for suggestive, need to do type of thing, and stick them everywhere. I had a client going through university, and he would tell me that his entire carpet floor in his bedroom literally were sticky pads, sticky things all over the place of things he had to do. And then he took a big colored one, he'd write school, work, family. And the red ones were on the top and the yellow ones were on the bottom. And even put a green one, which was do it when you can. I mean, or another person that will always forget their lunch as an adult still. And I said, why don't you not use a sticky pad? He says, are you kidding? I tried that. I can't get off the sticky pads. If I don't put a sticky pad on the door before I go out in the morning, I will forget my lunch. Are you kidding me? Nope, I got to do it. I don't know why. I try. Every day I say I'm going to try, never remember. So sticky pads, another good, simple, low-cost way to do it. Mm-hmm. Things like, with the technology we have, we talk about, kids remembering to take their pills.
Right.
Very big problem for many reasons. But, sometimes the right time of day, they're going to be more mindful. And, mornings they're running, they're this and that. It's hard to get kids to take pills, so you're constantly rushing. Take the pill, take the pill. Did you take the pill? I didn't take the pill yet. Take the pill. It's a whole argument for the pill. So a parent could simply create a system where every morning they take a little jar or something, they put the pills in, they put the bowl there, they put the glass there, and you pray to God the kid at least get up and take some milk or whatever and drink the pill. But that's part of a system. And if that's not going to work, what can we do? We can set a continuous alarm clock on the kid's phone, because almost every kid has a phone now, right? That says, that will ring not once, not twice, but 3 times. So if they got to leave to go to school at 8 o'clock, at mm-hmm. 7 o'clock, take pill, it's going to ring. 7:30 is going to take, we do things like that just to, and eventually some kids will remember, some kids won't, but you just try these different systems that in common, you're trying to create a system where it's always the same thing.
Consistency.
Exactly.
Consistency, predictability, and it sounds like customization of the systems that work for you to help you compensate for the weaknesses that you might have.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have a tendency to bypass your alarm clock by going on the machine, and you're at a hotel, well, call up the hotel and say, I want a wake-up call. Even so, because that you're probably not. You're going to probably answer the phone and say, yes, you'll be courteous, right? So I always tell people, do that as well. Why not? Tell your parents to wake up even though your alarm clock goes off. And I know people that their alarm clock goes off, they don't wake up, and unless their parent comes in, they're not waking up.
Yep. Got it. Awesome. This is great information, Avi. Thank you so much. So how do people find you if they want to contact you?
You can do a search on the internet and dial, Avi Loren-Cohen. You search and I'll be there. Go to my websites, get a LinkedIn. I'm out there. Very easy to replace.
Yeah. Avi, you also do business coaching. You're quite savvy at business coaching. So if anybody of you are looking for a business coach, Avi would be someone that you definitely should seek out. Great at social media and business strategies, things like that. So highly recommend you go to avilorencohen.com. That's AVYLORENCOHEN.com. Is that correct? You get it right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Right on.
All right. And also, Avi is giving away a free gift to you, like all of our speakers are. And Avi, what's your free gift today that you're giving away to our
I'm giving 3 30-minute sessions.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. You're going to be a very busy guy. 3 30-minute sessions. And is that for ADD coaching or ADHD coaching?
I will leave it to the individuals to decide what they want. If they want professional, corporate, consulting, ADHD, you name it, whatever. They have a kid they want to talk about, you name it. It's up to them to decide what they want to use it for.
Fantastic. And are you in New York, Avi?
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Toronto. That's right. The New York of Canada.
That's right. Downtown.
All right.
Canada. You got it.
Awesome. Toronto's a beautiful city. All right. So thank you, Avi, so much for being here. Big asset and helpful information. And if you want more information, you all know how to get a hold of Avi now, and reach out and make sure you click on this link. In fact, on this page is a link to his website, so you can book your free session with Avi, or your free 3 sessions with Avi. So Avi, thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of the ADHD Toolbox.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avi.